Greetings and welcome to In-Depth. I'm Dike Rostant. Now, sometimes we may see a person from time to time, but we are not quite sure about the history or how they have been putting in work, investing in the vineyard. Now, many people would have spoken about TTT Limited's coverage for Pan with Gerelle Forbes and another young lady. Now, this episode celebrates this young lady, Nubia Williams. She's a music educator, adjudicator for steelband, calypso and soca, steelpan examiner and pannist, one of the first two graduates of the BA of Musical Arts program at the University of the West Indies. So, Williams, how you do?
I'm great. I'm great.
Very happy to have the opportunity to speak with you and kind of focus on you, because many times you're speaking, you're giving us information about things, or you're organizing things, you're carrying people through workshops. And looking at those workshops, even before we get a little bit into history, what are some of the things that you're trying to bring out or come away with when you're taking part or facilitating these training workshops for judges in Calypso?
All right. Well, I love Calypso. I think that Calypso is a very special art form, and I've been judging Calypso now for the past 29 years or so. I'm extremely happy to be part of this journey with calypsonians and other artists in other genres, steel band, soca, and so on. But the calypsonian is a wonderfully versatile individual. And they take on characteristics and the concerns of society within day and time. I feel that calypsonians are ridiculously gifted. And to be a calypsonian of any note of longevity, it requires amazing performing dexterity and a real understanding of cultural and musical nuances, and a keen mint to interpret national and international issues and that entire climate in a very insightful way.
And to the person who says that, and I say this looking at some of the commentary that was going on for Ricardo Drew's film, so would have done a song and someone say, hey, she could sing soca, but she could really sing. Now, when you talk about wonderfully talented individuals, and even looking at the way that Kes would have done My Way for the funeral of Basil Pandey, former prime minister, sometimes it feels as though people think that to sing calypso, to sing soca, means that you're a tier below. How do you answer that first?
Apart from being musical and apart from understanding history and social issues, a calypsonian needs to really translate information in a real way, in real time, to his audience, not only educating, but also entertaining. And to be able to bridge that gap and to be able to do both things at a high standard, it takes a lot of investment, it takes a lot of time, and it takes a special type of personality to dedicate their entire life to that type of art form.
And I'm looking at this, I want to go a little further, thanks, because we already shared that you're one of the first two graduates of the BA of Musical Arts program at the University of the West Indies. How you get away with that, Miss Nubia? And I say that because many times, like Paul Keynes Douglas says, that many people want their children to have an or at the end of their profession, like doctor or lawyer. We're saying, as opposed to say, you sure that's what you want your good child to go and do?
My focus over the years has always been to push the artist further. I was never really interested in showcasing my own self or my own talent. That has never been my intention. So I am always there in the wings, looking out for great talent and trying to figure out how can I support their effort. As a matter of fact, when I was interviewed to attend the University of the West Indies into the musical arts program, one of the questions that the interviewer had asked me, why do I want to do this degree? And my answer kind of shocked everybody because it was really to understand my youngest brother, Atiba Chike Williams. He started playing music when he was 18 months old. And I really was very interested in his mind and his whole disposition and his whole development. I have been very curious to understand the minds of persons who are gifted and talented. And so my journey began.
And with that, you've been the regional coordinator for 7 years with the PAN and the classroom unit. What has that journey been like? Have you been drawing similarities and saying, okay, these are some of the things that go into having individuals emerge like this, looking at Chike's mind? And have you been seeing parallels? What is that process like?
Well, the Pan in the Classroom unit was the impetus and the brainchild of the Pan in Schools Coordinating Council, which incidentally, I was the PRO and first vice president and public relations officer for 11 years prior to that. So that initiative came about because persons like myself felt that the steel pan deserved a special place among our young people within the classroom in an environment that speaks to music education and using that steel pan as the instrument of choice in the delivery of music education. So all the understanding of music, pitch accuracy and rhythm and pan playing techniques and all those things, learning to read and write music, those things were important to have established at that time. And still is, continues to be.
And do you see acceptance for it? I mean, because to me, there are more groupings or coming out of schools that are playing pan. But even like when you're doing it, what is that reaction like? What is that feedback like when you're dealing actually on the ground in the classroom?
Because the steel pan is one of the easiest instruments to teach music theory, to use to teach music theory. And there's that instant gratification once somebody stands in front of the instrument, use the pan sticks properly, and play a simple song in a short space of time. Because of that instant gratification and because you get music sounding like music, as opposed to having to go through a long teething period of learning the technique of, let's say, like a violin or some other instrument like a guitar, where you have to really fret. Well, you think you need to be able to press those strings in a particular type of way. The steel pan is so different. And because of that instant gratification, a lot of young people and older people too, they tend to gravitate to that steel pan very quickly. So it's a joyous feeling, almost euphoric, to be able to play the steel pan and be able to come out on the other end performing not only on your own, but with that team, with that group of persons who are able to look across from you and understand the movement and understand all the licks and all the motifs and understand the pauses and the stops and the whole it's a spectacular thing to witness. And it's a beautiful feeling to be able to go through that rite of passage.
And I'm looking at you and hearing and feeling that excitement with you talking about it. But one of the things you spoke about is playing properly and technique. Technique. Yeah. What are some of those things that, even especially if you're instilling in younger individuals, what kind of technique are you trying to get them to deal with?
Well, there are many, but let me allude to three for the purposes of this discussion. One, stance. You must be able to stand properly behind the instrument. Two, holding the sticks properly and striking those notes in the right spots to be able to get the best sound out of the instrument. And as I mentioned before, I think I was on another program and I spoke about that volume level when playing the instrument that you must never go beyond. So each player must first understand the instrument and figure out what is the softest I can play here and what's the loudest sound I can get emanating from this instrument, and understanding those things. So stance, striking the note with the right intensity, and of course, what was the third one? It just left me. Stand, striking the note,
And you also holding the sticks properly, I believe you said?
Holding the sticks properly, holding the sticks properly. All those things are part of pan playing techniques. And really, many times we see, even in our national panorama, although persons are having fun and being a part of the whole experience, sometimes those notes are being struck too loudly, and it tends to have those notes distorted. And that could be something that we need to look at.
And we will see what are some of the other things that we need to look at on the other side of the conversation. We are speaking with Nubia Williams. Stay with us, we return after this. Welcome back. We are having a discussion with Nubia Williams, and we are actually focusing on her a little bit. I know sometimes it feels a little weird because she does so, but you do so much, Ms. Williams. And one of the most recent places that I would have seen you was carrying some contestants through Vocalese. This is for the regional competition in Montserrat, the Queens of Queens. And what is that like? Because I see you there with a pan as well. And how is it to take people from different areas? They may have had different instructions, different ways of going about things, and actually going through these workshops with them.
All right. Well, I would have gone to Montserrat many years ago, and I have been working with that group of judges for some time. So I've worked with the judges for the soca monarch competition there, as well as the calypso competition locally and the regional female competition. And we've gone through a number of modules to deal with elements of music, which is very important. All judging panels, once music is involved, the elements of music should be included. That's like melody, rhythm, harmony, time, texture, and those things. And many times you have judges who would have gone to school or who would have studied and understand the characteristics of these things, but all judging panels must have the same understanding or the same interpretation of similar terms. If the disparity on the judging table if that gap is to be closed. And so that we would have gone through those things. And in Montserrat, when the regional females came over from different islands, I would have gone through some of the things that they needed to look at in their performances in order to get those top marks, excellent. So that the calypso, for instance, should have a really recognizable theme. And each verse should incrementally advance as the verse and choruses go on. And you know, the vocalists that you spoke about or alluded to, I felt that all singers, regardless of the genre, must go through vocal exercises, warm-ups, and stance and all those things. And I felt, why not think of a way to have our Caribbean competitors do their voice training using some type of Caribbean flavor. So that's why I had used the calypso scales, which is really what the UE steelpan players use in their graded exams. And I would have just adapted it and put words for it for the occasion.
And it really, to me, it resonated a little differently because it feels, even though it may be the time that you're encountering it. So that's something that I really appreciated. But in terms of those
many times, one of the main things to look at in calypso offerings that stands out over the years is that pitch accuracy, being able to sing in key. Sometimes calypsonians tend to be a little bit sharp or be a little bit flat, or they would be in key up until they sing the ending of their lines, the ending of that phrase. So that vocal exercises would be one of those things to try to help them along in their process of being better calypsonians.
Thank you for that. Do you find that the rubric is very different from Trinidad and Tobago to Montserrat and possibly some of the other jurisdictions that you've been in the region?
All right, you're talking about the criteria, the judging criteria.
Yes, ma'am.
As I go from country to country, we have slight variations with criteria. So for instance, in Trinidad, we have, well, certain calypso competitions, not all, different ones are different. We look at lyrics, music rendition, presentation, originality, and those things. This particular competition on Montserrat, their criteria had to do with lyrics, and under lyrics, you would have theme, language, structure, originality, and then melody as another broad heading. And under there, we would have compatibility, melodic line, originality, creativity. And then I would have gone in and changed up their criteria a little bit, because that's one of the things I do. I review different criteria, and then I build rubrics to suit the criteria to help the judges along. So under rendition, we would have had voice control and technique as one of the subcategories, phrasing, tempo, interpretation, diction and clarity, and then under presentation, use of stage and props and that type of thing. So once I review the criteria, the judging criteria, then I would go on and create a detailed rubric. And let me just explain for some persons who may not understand the difference. The judging criteria are the areas that the competitor will be judged against, right? So you have lyrics, melody, rendition, presentation, and those things. The rubric is a little bit different, where you take those elements, you stretch it out, and you try to determine now, using a key, what is excellent? What would be an excellent calypso? What would be very good? What would be good? What would you consider fair? And what would you consider weak? So I take all of those things and then I write in very clear language, clear and detailed language, what an excellent performance should look as under any area or sub area within the criteria. And of course, there's a range of marks that I give. So excellent, for instance, would be out of 10. Excellent would be 10. Very good will be either 8 or 9. Good will be a range from 5 to 7. Fair might be from 3 to 4. And then weak between 1 and 2. And I would have done that type of calculation and that type of cerebral taking measurement for all areas within any criteria. Building that rubric.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. And where I wanted to go, I'm not even going to go, because you raised that point, and looking at the criteria and the rubric, do you think that helps certain sorts of calypsos more than others? And I'm thinking in a competitive aspect, because
sorry, can you just repeat it? Sorry about that.
Do you think that helps certain types of calypsos in the competitive arena? Because sometimes it feels, I've heard people talk about, okay, well, the lamentation calypsos, it feels as though they get in the nod versus ones that are a little more humorous versus different types. So what is your take on that?
Well, the type of calypso is interesting to look at, but what is even more important is how the topic is treated, how the topic is handled, and the structure and format of that calypso. So that, for instance, there's something after you look at the theme to see if the topic is in keeping with that theme that is being sung, you have something called wordplay. How are the lyrics of the calypso forwarding the topic or the theme, and how exotic or how creative was the calypso written? This is regardless of style now. Literary devices, I should mention, the use of literary devices is something that I stress a lot in my training for calypso, and how those different types of literary devices could be interwoven into a calypso presentation. Things like double entendre and irony, wit, onomatopoeia, and a whole host of others. So yes, the style of calypso is very important, especially if the calypsonian could really bring it across in a convincing manner and translate the ideas being sung. But what is more important is the historical context, the entire presentation, the use of stage, the microphone, agility, rendition, how that calypsonian offers the ideas being presented in the calypso. So there are many different things to look at, and really good calypsonians of note, they present their calypsos so artfully and effortlessly. You wouldn't even realize that so many different areas would go into that type of presentation.
Well, Ms. Nubia, I realize that I get caught in the matrix and I take real chain up, you know, because I wanted to talk to you about you. And we end up talking about calypso, how it is a judging. But one of the things I always appreciate when I see you commenting or in a broadcast, you walk with your receipts, you have your notes that you look at and verify and cross-reference and all these kind of things. And that has taken us to our time. So I'll take the chain up, but I'm also very grateful for the insight. So thank you for the work that you have done and the work that you continue to do. And on behalf of the entire TTT News team, this has been In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. Thank you so much for joining us.